Hello Horror Hounds, welcome to my horror house. This morning I finally got round to watching Alien Romulus, the Fede Alvaraz movie that sits in the timeline between Alien and Aliens. I was very excited when I heard that Alvarez was taking the helm of this. I happen to love his Evil Dead movie. He took an existing property, he made an instalment in that which could stand on its own, stand apart. It felt very much like a Fede Alvarez movie rather than being too slavish to the movies that came before, and I was hoping that he was going to bring that quality into the Alien universe. However, I feel that Romulus is a movie of two halves, and both halves unfortunately are unnecessarily beholden to the movies that they are trying to honour. In brief, the film is about a bunch of orphaned kids who are indentured, essentially contracted to work for Weyland-Yutani on a mining planetoid 65 light years from Earth that gets zero sunshine, and they decide that they need to escape to a better life, and when they hear a ping from an orbiting satellite station, they think that that might be their ticket off world. Unfortunately, that orbiting satellite is decaying in orbit and something really bad has gone down there. It's xenomorph time, and the first half of the movie is very much in the vein of Ridley Scott's Alien, with facehugger, then chestburster, then a full-grown xenomorph, and it sort of devolves, to my mind, into Aliens territory with multiple aliens, sort of pulse rifles and things like that. And that sort of drop-off just highlights how completely different the movies Alien and Aliens are. It's one of the geniuses of James Cameron's sequel to live in that world but tell a completely different story with more or less, apart from one, completely different characters. And when you try and stitch those two together in one movie, it really is a bit of a whiplash turn. The very, very start of the film on the mining colony, for me, is some of the most engaging aspects of the movie to really hammer home the have-nots, the 99 percenters, if you want. Just watching the sort of life that they live and the world that they live in, with the very, very few busted and broken down resources that they have, just weirdly made me think of Weyland's ship in Prometheus, which is essentially the Starship equivalent of a trillionaire's luxury yacht, and all the kind of mod cons that the haves have got compared to the space truckers in Alien, and now the mining colonists here in Alien Romulus. Once they get on board the station, then the visual nods to the previous films start happening, and it's sort of little things that I could live with that get slightly more egregious when we move into the Aliens section of the story, apart from the absolutely horrific sort of deep-faced technology to try and give us an Ian Holm performance as an artificial person, clearly intended to bring to mind Ash, but just there was absolutely no point to it whatsoever. And in a film that is to be commended for trying to use practical effects whenever and wherever possible, this hollow, soulless, uncanny valley computer face mapping technology just looked like an absolute fucking abomination. There was no need for that synthetic person to even be the same model as Ian Holm's Ash. An utter miserable misstep that yanked me out of the movie every time that demonic, soulless face appeared on the screen. It was horrible. It is difficult when you're trying to get back to the well, back to basics, if you like, and show how a group of people in a single environment with just one xenomorph are completely fucked, to then introduce pulse rifles and multiple aliens and then just go blasting away again. It kind of undoes all the goodwill you've set up in the first portion by taking us back to basics and saying, yeah, these aliens will fuck you up, unless you got a big gun. And it is that pulse rifle sequence where I felt the wheels really started to come off. They do a quite interesting thing with it by having it in zero gravity, but it gets very, very computer gamey. It looked like a computer game level where you had to, shoot all the incoming aliens, and then the facehuggers were coming in zero gravity and you had to shoot them. Then in zero G you had to navigate your way through the floating pools of acid blood, and then directly after that she had to pull 4 different levers which were in different parts of a room. That just all screamed computer game, and none of that was cinematic storytelling to my mind. All in all, it's left me with the feeling, this being the 7th movie in the Alien franchise, if we set the Alien versus Predator movies to one side, left me with the unfortunate feeling that the facehuggers, chestbursters, xenomorph drones, they're just not scary anymore. For good or for ill, with especially Prometheus and Covenant, Ridley Scott with the previous 2 movies has taken us in new directions. I was really heartened to see the return of the black goo in this as an evolutionary catalyzing agent that created a really freaky creature right at the end of the film, which I wish hadn't got spoiled. In fact, pretty much absolutely everything in this fucking movie has been spoiled on social media, including HD screen grabs from the end of the freaking movie. HD screen grabs from portions of the movie that aren't in the trailer before the movie even comes to streaming. So I don't know how those are flying around all over the place. But regardless, yes, unfortunately, I was left with the feeling that the xenomorph is just not scary anymore. And I'm really down for now an awful lot of the freaky deaky stuff. The weird mutagen combinations we see in Prometheus and Covenant, and the hybrid creature that we see at the end of this movie. I really wish that hadn't been spoiled for me, because that would have been like absolute supper to me. I would have been eating well at that point if I hadn't have known exactly what was coming. But just now, at the stage that this Alien universe is at, back to basics is just, for me, another way of saying more of the same. I'd love some more of the crazy, freaky stuff. There's now talk of doing a sequel to Romulus, which I guess is now going to have to doodle in the margins of the existing timeline again. I imagine this again will take place before Aliens happens. And personally, I think I would have loved to have seen the end of David's trilogy, the end of Ridley Scott's plans for Prometheus, Covenant, and whatever the final one was going to be called. As with those movies, the synthetic person in Alien Romulus is by leagues ahead the most interesting character in the entire thing. And I think back to the original Alien. I think back to Aliens, and I think of these ensemble casts that were packed full of these interesting characters and interesting character actors. And we're at a stage now where all of the humans seem to be completely disposable, more or less. Sorry, Shaw. And the synthetics are the much more interesting characters. We get rehashes of some of the greatest hits that shouldn't have been there. If only Alvarez had not been so beholden to the first 2 movies and had trusted the story he was telling to not have ridiculous dialogue callbacks to previous movies, ridiculous face mapping to dead actors, and to have told a bold new story. Wouldn't that have been something?
I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.